If you want to be fast, you're going to need speed boots. Or at least that's what some people think. There have been a ton of new speed boots for 2019, and I was going to do a top 5 speed boots of 2019 type video, but then my nemesis at Unisport, this MIJ guy who I do a podcast with called Boot Nerds Podcast that you should definitely subscribe to if you haven't already, he already did his own video. I have a difference of opinion, but I figured why make a similar video? Why not rank all of the speed boots from best to worst? So that's exactly what I'm going to do, except it will be from worst to best, and the only reason why the title says best to worst is because worst to best just sounds wrong. So get off my case. So this list will consist of 10 different speed boots from brands like Nike, Adidas, Puma, Umbro, as well as New Balance, who are the 5 brands that currently make a football boot marketed as a speed boot. I'm also going to be including the Adidas Nemeziz because while it is technically an agility boot, we all know it's a speed boot. Because if you're agile and slow, you're just slow. Therefore, agility equals speed. Also, all of these speed boots are current top-end models. No takedowns will be ranked in this list. And I should also mention that if you're interested in any of these boots for yourself, there will be links to all the review pages down below in the description of this video, where you'll find buy it now links with exclusive SR4U coupon codes to get any of them below their normal retail prices. By the way, if you guys do end up enjoying this video and perhaps would like to see more ranking videos on the channel, don't forget to support this one with a like and let me know specifically what you'd like to see ranked down below in the comment section. Also, if you're new here watching for the first time and don't want to miss out on daily content from me, make sure you hit that subscribe button along with the little bell notification so you get notified when the next new video goes live. The Adidas Glitch 2.0 is undoubtedly a very unique pair of football boots, and they're technically not marketed as speed boots, but given that this is kind of a knockoff of the design of Adidas's own X line that is now the previous generation, and those were marketed as speed boots, this is indirectly a speed boot in my opinion. However, they are not very light for speed boots, weighing in at about 10.5 ounces in a size 9.5 US, which for comparison's sake is actually the same weight as a pair of Adidas Copa Mundials. Aside from just not being lightweight, it doesn't have an exceptional touch. The laceless system, while unique, doesn't necessarily offer the best overall fit, lockdown, or responsiveness. The stud pattern is okay, but not particularly aggressive, and as a pair of speed boots, they're just not at the top of any particular performance category. So I think there is some merit to the Glitch system. I think it's cool and it does work well as a whole, but as a pair of football boots, speed boots or not, there's really nothing about this that stands out versus other top-end models out there. Oh, and unless you live in certain parts of the world, you probably can't buy them. I'm sitting down now. The Adidas Nemeziz 19 Plus is a great example of a pair of football boots that does certain things extremely well, but then falls flat on its face in other areas. In terms of touch, the barefoot sensation that you get due to this tension tape constructed upper is phenomenal. It's arguably one of the best on this particular list. However, the tension tape is also there as a laceless system to hold your foot in place, which it doesn't do particularly well. Not to say that these are going to fly off your feet, but the lockdown is not what it should be for a $275 laceless boot. The responsiveness also isn't there. And again, with laceless boots, the fit and experience is going to vary from person to person. I guess if you're somebody that wants speed boots that aren't overly tight, you might enjoy these, even though they do have a very low volume, fairly tight wrap around your foot. But again, the lockdown and tension, especially across the top of the foot where laces would normally be, just isn't there for me. It does have a split sole construction, and I really like the feel of the sole plate, although it's a little bit stiffer than I think it should be, given how soft, thin, and flexible the upper is, so the two things don't necessarily match in my opinion. And then the stud pattern is actually quite good in terms of overall traction, and the fact that it is FG-AG is also a benefit. Also, not to mention the weight, it's about 9 ounces in a size 9.5 US, which is far from heavy, but again, not super light for a pair of expensive speed boots. The Umbro Velocita 4 Pro is the one speed boot on this list that you probably didn't know existed or completely forgot about, and it's actually a really solid pair of football boots, and if you can get them for the right price, I definitely think that they're well worth it. However, it's one of those products that does certain things really well, but does have some major downsides. One of those downsides being the FG stud pattern that should definitely be rebranded as hard ground or perhaps even AG, because the studs are remarkably short. So if you're using this on natural grass that has any kind of depth to it, the traction just isn't up to par with pretty much every other football boot on this particular list, and aggressive traction is a key characteristic of a speed boot. The upper is comfortable. It has this neoprene base to it, which makes it stretch around your foot very nicely. The touch on the ball is thin, but admittedly the boots have a little bit of a cheap sensation to them, considering that they do retail for $200. While the neoprene base feels good on feet, at the same time in terms of touch, it just doesn't have the same premium vibe as some of the other boots on this list. And then from a weight perspective, they're about 7 ounces in a size 9.5 US, which is pretty much on par with all of the top speed boots. So nothing to complain about there. Again, not bad football boots, but not exactly deserving of being higher on this list. The Adidas X19 Plus, in my opinion, is the best laceless speed boot you can buy. So if you're into the laceless thing and you're also into speed boots, this is the one that you should consider. The upper is super thin and has a really nice feel to it, not to mention looks very cool. The laceless system, admittedly, is very simple and straightforward and is the one downfall of this football boot, in my opinion. The reason why it is a little bit lower on this list. The fit is going to vary so much from person to person, and because there isn't much stretch to this laceless system at all, it means that once you get your foot in there, if it matches perfectly, the lockdown's actually going to be pretty good. But for most people, it's not going to fit you perfectly, which means that there is going to be a lack of lockdown, a lack of responsiveness, which is a huge part of what makes a speed boot feel like a speed boot. So it does suffer in the fit and lockdown category. It's lightweight. The FGAG stud pattern of the X line, I think, is really, really good as well. And again, it does everything very, very well except for locking your foot in place. The New Balance Furon V5 Pro, while it might look very simple, is actually very unique in terms of the features that it has on offer versus every other speed boot out there right now. The upper, I think, is really the major highlight. It's super thin, it's very pliable, does not have a plasticky sensation at all, and is probably the closest thing to the popular Tajin synthetic that we used to see but no longer see on the Mercurial Vapor and Superfly series. So if you really like those old school Mercurial Vapors in terms of touch, that is exactly what this feels like. I do think that the responsiveness and lockdown could be a little bit better, and it is compromised because of this very shallow lacing system that they've gone with, which also makes for a slightly cleaner touch across the top of the foot. So that's a little bit of a trade-off that they've made from a design standpoint. All things considered, the lockdown is still quite good, and the boots as a whole, while they wrap your foot very closely, do have a slightly wider last than most of the other boots on this list, and they also make it in a wide fit variation. So if you had wide feet and really want speed boots, this is definitely something that you should consider. I think that the stud pattern and sole plate is really, really good, being modeled after a sprinter spike. I think the studs could do with being a little bit longer, so if you play on slightly deeper natural grass fields, slightly softer fields, I should say, maybe the traction won't be quite as good as some other models, but as a whole, I still think that it's pretty solid. And the boots could be a touch lighter. That is where I think New Balance really needs to improve significantly, but they're still around the 8 ounce mark in a size 9.5 US, so nothing too major to complain about. Again, not a perfect pair of speed boots, but definitely a really solid option. The Adidas Nemeziz 19.1 basically takes everything that's good about the Nemeziz 19 Plus and improves most of the bad. It does incorporate a lacing system, obviously, and doesn't feature the unnecessary and very exaggerated mid-cut design, but because of the lacing system, the fit and lockdown is not really an issue at all. Could they be a little bit more responsive? Definitely, but as a whole, they're on par with pretty much any top-end speed boot in that particular category, aside from a couple really, really special ones. Other than that, the touch is phenomenal, especially if you're after a barefoot feel with this tension tape construction. It does have the split sole, which I think suits this particular boot better than the laceless model, just because the lockdown is a lot better. So the responsive sole plate is actually something that is more so appreciated rather than a bit of a nuisance. Obviously, I said the stud pattern is very good. I'm still of the opinion that it is, and they could be a little bit lighter. Again, in a size 9.5 US, they're right around the 8 ounce mark, which is by no means heavy, but again, still they could be lighter for a top-end speed boot. The Puma One 5.1 is a very special and unique pair of speed boots in that it incorporates an incredibly soft and premium feeling kangaroo leather upper while still maintaining a very responsive locked-in sensation and also a lightweight feel that you expect from a pair of top-end speed boots. The kangaroo leather spans pretty much the entire toe box and forefoot area and also covers the entire medial side of the midfoot, meaning that when you pass and control the ball, most of the time you're going to have the sensation of super soft leather, which is really nice and something you won't get from any other speed boot currently available. The lateral side is reinforced with a synthetic material that offers really good lockdown, really good structure, and makes for a nice responsive sensation in general. It does feature a mid-cut design with some of the best heel lockdown of any football boot out there, speed boot or not. And then the Rapid Sprint sole plate with the FGAG stud pattern is super underrated, very aggressive, a great feel to it, and it gives the boot a nice lightweight feel as well, in and around the 7.5 ounce range in a size 9.5 US, which again is very, very lightweight considering the fact that this does have a kangaroo leather upper. The Adidas X 19.1 up until very recently was my personal favorite speed boot, and I still like them a lot. It does everything extremely well, but does have one unique feature that you won't find from many other speed boots on this list, and that is this speed mesh upper that is thin, does provide a barefoot sensation, but there is a little bit of a padded feel to it as well. Not so much leather-like like the Puma One, but still kind of more of like a padded sock, I guess is the best way to describe it. The lockdown and responsiveness, considering how soft and flexible this upper is, isn't perfect, but it definitely is above average, certainly. I find the boots as a whole to be extremely comfortable. The lockdown, I think, through the heel is really solid as well, with the laces tied tight. And then, of course, the speed frame that you have with the FGAG stud pattern of the X line gives the boot a nice lightweight feel right around the 7 ounce mark in a size 9.5 US. And I think that this is a really good stud pattern as well. The fact that they're also FGAG is a definite bonus. For me, one of the best speed boots money can buy. The made in Japan Mizuno Morelia Neo 2 Beta. Now, technically this is a limited edition release, but given that it's Mizuno, given that it's quite expensive, and that it's just not going to be that popular, it means that it's pretty readily available despite being limited to only 3,000 or so pairs. Either way, this is an incredible pair of speed boots and takes the title of my personal favorite out of everything on this list, but still isn't number one for reasons that I'll explain in just a second. What I love about the Neo 2 Beta is it has the most natural sensation of any speed boot that I've personally ever worn. It really does feel like you aren't wearing any shoes on your feet at all. The upper is incredibly thin, it's super flexible. This mesh-based synthetic through the midfoot I find to be extremely comfortable, but is a little bit lacking in terms of overall responsiveness. It's just not as structured as the regular synthetic material you'd find on a regular Neo 2. The kangaroo leather at the toe is extremely soft and even that much thinner than what you get on a regular pair of Neos as well. And then the sole plate and stud pattern I think is really underrated. It doesn't look like much. It's obviously a design that Mizuno has had within the brand for a very long time now, but it is a lot more aggressive than you might expect based on the way it looks. Not to mention the build quality of any MIJ Mizuno product is pretty much the best of the best in comparison to everything out there. They're not really that much lighter than a regular pair of Neo 2s, so that is worth noting, but as a whole, one of the lightest football boots on this particular list, one of the lightest boots that you can buy, and for me, just a very special product. And just to be clear, the regular made in Japan Morelia Neo 2 is pretty much every bit as good as the Beta. If the Beta didn't exist, I would still have the Neo 2 at the 2 spot, and I guess it kind of shares the spot with the Beta if I'm being honest. The main difference being the synthetic material through the midfoot that's just a little bit more structured on the regular Neo 2 that actually does make for better lockdown and responsiveness and an overall tighter fit, but for me, I just find the Beta to be a little bit more comfortable. However, if you can't get the Beta because it's sold out, being that it is limited, this is legitimately one of the best speed boots on the market. Which brings us to the number one spot, which perhaps unsurprisingly is the latest Mercurial. Nike pretty much invented the speed boot category and they still dominate it in 2019. I have here the Vapor 13 Elite as an example, but if you prefer the mid-cut design of the Superfly 7 Elite, those are equally as good. They're basically just variations of the same thing. This is a speed boot that does everything extremely well, not to mention that the touch, the comfort, everything that the Mercurial has done well in the past this does it that much better. The Flyknit upper is incredibly sock-like and soft, which I think was the main complaint with the previous generation, the first Vapor to go full Flyknit rather than Teijin synthetic. This doesn't have any of that plasticky sensation, making for a much more natural sensation, certainly a more flexible feel to the upper as well. Not to mention, they also feel thinner. That was another complaint with the previous generation. It didn't have the barefoot feel. It's back now in the Vapor 13, but because of the incorporation of high tenacity yarns within the Flyknit upper, you get all of that responsiveness without just adding a bunch of plastic to the upper. So you get the best of both worlds in terms of the boots being sock-like, but also extremely locked in and responsive. They've also modified the shape, giving you what I think is the best tight-fitting football boot on the market right now. The lockdown is phenomenal. The split sole has been reworked ever so slightly to, I think, feel that much better. Not that there was really anything wrong with it in the first place. It has this very progressive stiffness to it that really does have a nice responsive feel, and the stud pattern, as you'd expect from a top-end Mercurial, is pretty much as aggressive as it gets. So if you're looking for the most aggressive traction out there, this is it. Not to mention, they are ever so slightly lighter and one of the lightest speed boots on the market right now. So in terms of pretty much any kind of objective performance category, it's pretty hard to beat this boot. And that's my list. Do you agree? Do you disagree? Let me know what you guys think, how you would rank these boots down below in the comments. If you guys enjoyed this video, please don't forget to support it with a like. That helps me out tremendously. And again, if you're interested in any of the boots in today's video, except for the glitches because you technically can't buy them unless you live in certain parts of the world, there will be links to all of that down below in the description of this video, so make sure you go ahead and check that out. If you have any questions, as always, leave them down below in the comment section. I'll do my best to get an answer out to you as soon as I possibly can. Subscribe if you haven't already for daily videos on all the latest and greatest soccer gear. You can find all my social media information linked down below in the description as well. And other than that, guys, thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you in the next one. Thank you.